2022 was an interesting year. We had a lot of interesting guests and guest hosts, and thank you to all of them. Well, some of the favorite shows that we had over the year. Well, let's start off with the first show of 2022, which had a special guest, Nashua native, also former Red Sox broadcaster, and now currently with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Tim Neverett joined us, and he was talking about his book, COVID Curveball. The book itself, though, was inspired by a walk with, we see Reggie, your chocolate lab in the background there, a walk up in the White Mountains. That's what inspired you to come up with the title and the project, right?
Yeah, my wife Jess is
Jess
enough to drive, and Reggie and I were up in the White Mountains during quarantine. We decided to get out of Nashua and go up to Bretton Woods and that area, Carroll and Whitefield, and we like it up there quite a bit. We spend quite a lot of time up there, but we got a cabin up there and had a place we could walk every day, and so we're just walking around and just thinking out loud, out of the box. I said, "Hey, what about this? Should I do this, or what do you think of that?" And she's like, "Yeah, you better do that." So I started writing every day. I caught up from the first part of spring training before we were sent home. And then once I went back to spring training 2.0, which was not in Arizona, it was in Los Angeles. We called games off of TV screens and things like that. So, we went back and did that. And then I started chronicling, what was going on every day. On a day-by-day basis, wrote it in real time so that by the time the World Series had ended, maybe a week later, the manuscript was done, and we had a publisher already, and they liked the idea, especially since the Dodgers won. That kind of helped. But they went to work on it pretty quickly, and we had it out by the All-Star game in Denver this year.
Well, Roger, I'm going to let you jump in here. I just wanted to mention that one thing you mentioned in the book is your connection going back to your youth with the Dodgers in Nashua, and that's kind of cool. And Roger,
yes, sir.
Roger is a Dodger fan, no doubt about it. He bleeds the blue for sure. Tell us about those connections.
You go ahead and tell the story, Tim. You were, Holman Stadium. It starts there, right?
Yeah, and my Dodger connection began when I was 7 years old. My brother BJ played for the Nashua Dodgers, the Little League Dodgers in the North End, which was right outside of Holman Stadium, literally where we played. And I was a bat boy at age 7. And then 2 years later, because I've been with them, I got drafted by them and in the Little League draft. So everybody who gets drafted in a Little League draft can say they were drafted at one point in their life. So I played for the Dodgers for 4 years. We won a city championship. We're always in the playoffs. We had a bunch of good players. And so that was my Dodger thing. And, my coaches used to say, wear your hat a certain way. When you're on the field, dress a certain way and be proud to be a Dodger. And that's kind of when I felt I learned how to be a Dodger. Then following that, I played for Coffee Post, American Legion, in Nashua. Our home games were at Holman Stadium, and our uniforms happened to be Dodger replica uniforms. They look just like the road uniforms. And so that was kind of a neat thing. I like that. And then once I was in college, my freshman year, we had the Nashua Angels come into town and the Nashua Pirates in the Eastern League. And I was trying to decide whether to play summer ball or intern. I ended up interning, but I started playing summer ball for a team known as the Nashua Dodgers. So, in the Brooklyn Dodgers farm team back in the 40s played at Holman Stadium, in that same stadium. You had players like Don Newcomb, Roy Campanella. Walter Alston was the manager of that team in 1941, 42 in there. So, so the Dodgers have always had a connection in Nashua. You go downtown Nashua, there's a big tire store that's been there forever. There's a Dodgers mural that's painted on the wall with Campanella and Newcomb at Maynard and Lesher, right behind City Hall. So there's always been some sort of Dodger connection. And then it goes further. When I was in Las Vegas doing AAA baseball, I was with the Padres AAA team. It was the Las Vegas Stars. They decided that they didn't want to renew with the Padres or vice versa, but the Dodgers came in and were the affiliate. So for a number of years, I broadcast the Dodgers AAA games. So it came back to the Dodgers. And so when the Dodgers offered me the job after the 2018 World Series, I had a chance to come back to Boston and stay with the Red Sox. I wasn't exactly very happy with the situation with the flagship station, and I didn't really know if I wanted to stay at that time, to be quite honest. But when the Dodgers offered me the job, it took me about 10 seconds to say yes. And I'm back being a Dodger again. So there's always been a Dodger element in my life, one way or another.
I just wanted to ask, you've been in two legendary ballparks, Fenway, obviously on this coast, and now Dodger Stadium, Chavez Ravine. Just compare the feel for those parks, the people.
They're very different. And this is a good question. I've been asked this before. It's hard to describe in some ways, but it's really different. And not in a bad way either way. Fenway is Fenway. People go to Fenway to see the ballpark first. It's just a lot of character. It's old. It's got so much history to it. And, the Red Sox are just they're such a legendary franchise, not only in New England, but around baseball that, and when they're good, you want to see them win. But when they're not very good, people used to go to see the ballpark. And when I was in college, I used to live 3 blocks from Fenway Park on the other side of Kenmore Square. And the Red Sox were pretty good. They actually went to the World Series in '86, but there were years where they didn't sell out many games. We just walk over, and it was great. We wanted to go to Fenway and experience it. The people, they're a hardy group because the weather is very different from the start of the season to the middle of the season to the end of the season. And that can affect people's moods, as we all know, right? But in Los Angeles, there's tons of parking, never an issue with parking. There's like 365 acres of parking there around the stadium. It's not in a neighborhood. It kind of is, but isn't. It's got its own huge open area. It's a big ballpark. It seats, I'd say almost 20,000 more than Fenway. I think we can get 52 to 55,000 at Dodger Stadium. And the Dodgers always lead in attendance. People do go to Dodger Stadium for Dodger Stadium, but it's a wonderful experience either way. But you might get the same weather opening day as you do sometime in August or September. I mean, it's just beautiful. And we don't keep a tarp on the field.
Wow.
We don't have to because we don't have rainouts there.
Never, yeah.
And to drop a name on you from New England, Nomar Garciaparra is one of the guys that I get to work with. He's a Southern California guy. He did play for the Dodgers. But one time he and I were on the field my first year. We were down by the batting cage during BP. And it was early in the season, and he started laughing, and he told me a story that Grady Little told him when Grady went to the Dodgers. And he said, "See that blue sky, Nomar?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Every day, every bleeping day, it's like this here." And it's true. And it's absolutely 100% true. So even, this year, the times that I work with Nomar, we'd have a beautiful, sky. And I'd say, "What did Grady tell you, Nomar?" He goes, "Every bleeping day."
I love it. I love it. Roger, you wanted to talk about the actual season, the COVID season that Tim and his journal. Why don't you throw some questions at him?
Well, first, I'd like to say that the Dodger dog is far superior to the Fenway Frank as well.
I was going to ask about that too.
I will agree, because if you get the steamed Fenway Frank, it used to be that the bun was wet.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the wet bun, but I do like the Dodger dog.
In regards to the book, Tim, were you thinking about writing a book and you just didn't know what topic it was going to be, or was this just strictly the COVID idea and you went with it?
It was strictly the COVID idea, the season, what it was going to be like, because we didn't know. We had no idea if we'd have a season. We had no idea if we'd play 20 games, 50 games, 100 games. We didn't know. So we just looked at it and said, I'm just going to keep a journal of what's going on, and then clean it up every now and then. Like I'd write at night and then maybe clean some things up in the morning and move on to the next day. Take some notes. I took a lot of mental notes. I didn't tell anybody I worked with because I didn't want anybody going, hey, that'd be great for the book, or don't put that in the book, or, whatever. So I didn't tell anybody till the very last day that we were there. We had a game against the Angels to finish up the regular season. And that's when I went and told my boss and told people I worked with that, hey, by the way, I'm thinking about making a book on this season, just so you know. And it's not a tell-all book. It's not it's just, this is how it was during the season on a day-by-day basis. So everybody was good with it. The Dodgers were actually very supportive. They helped me with the photographs. They helped me get it licensed by Major League Baseball, and they were really supportive of the idea. And my fellow broadcasters were, and the manager Dave Roberts was supportive, and he there were some players, Mookie Betts included, that said, hey, anything I can do to help. I said, yeah, let's take a picture and we'll use it to promote. And they were like, yeah, no problem, whatever you need. So everybody was really good about it.
The next show we'd like to feature from 2022 was Ball603. KJ Cardinal, gentleman I met at Lundholm Gymnasium during the championship games that were going on at Lundholm. And it really fascinated me, the workmanship he was putting into the videos and photos that he was going to put together in a special book called The Season.
Ball603, I had the idea a couple of years ago. I actually, purchased the domain name and created the logo and things back in 2019. And then this year we just kind of decided to push play on it. We're really just covering sports, basketball rather, in New Hampshire. And our focus mostly is visual storytelling. I think we're doing that with photos and graphics and video highlights. And it's been really well received so far. But yeah, we're just trying to get the stories out there and provide more coverage. That's really just what I felt was just, lacking a little bit of coverage for everyone around the state. So we're trying to kind of fill some of that void.
Well, I'll tell you, I watched some of the video coverage that you put together of the different games, and wow, man, you guys did some great work. And the shots, the action shots, those like I said, are worth 1,000 words. Explain to me how do you develop that skill to be able to pick up that shot, especially in a crucial moment in a game when the guy is putting up or the gal's putting up that 3-pointer that's going to win it for the team. How is that?
I think a lot of it is just, knowing the sport. I'm also a youth coach and a junior high coach in my hometown here of Farmington. And just knowing basketball, you can anticipate things. Growing up, I was a pretty good video game player. I think that always plays in the hand-eye coordination type of stuff. But it's really anticipation. If I went and shot a field hockey game, I don't think I would have the same results with some of the photos and things that I take. And then on the video side of things, almost all the video that people are seeing on our site is being shot by Tim Lee, who obviously knows basketball well. He was a 2,000-point scorer in the state. I think that us having kind of an eye and a knack for what's going on the court, I think really helps. And we have some good equipment and a lot of practice.
Yeah, so you really have you've done the practicing. You got it down to a science, literally. Sam?
KJ, Sam Bruno here. Again, we talked at the tournament the other night. One of the things, again, Sherm and I, we don't say that we're seniors, but we're veterans. Okay, veterans. I like that. Veterans of the high school basketball scene.
I like that.
And we would always get all our content from newspapers and the radio, and lately then going to television. But now the younger crowd, parents, they're looking at Facebook, they're looking at Twitter, they're looking at Instagram. How are you using social media as part of your 603 basketball program?
Yeah, that's really what the focus is for us. That we're using all those social media entities that are out there and available to just reach the audience. I think it's the fastest, easiest, most inexpensive way to kind of get your message out there. In all honesty, anybody can do it. It's great to have those platforms that you can showcase your work that you put time into. But I'm a journalism major. I went to Northeastern University, graduated there, and print does mean a lot to me. We just decided that we're going to be launching a new magazine. And I think that there is something to be said about having an actual printed copy of anything in your hands. But I just feel that like the instant gratification that, you know, people are really looking for these days that social media offers kind of makes newspapers in print somewhat obsolete as far as getting the immediate news that you want to get. Like a score, you know, it's different, you know, that people are along that way. I mean, you can watch games live now all over the state. So it's kind of taken out, you know, I remember as, you know, growing up in Farmington and, you know, getting the newspaper and, you know, couldn't wait to read a Mike Whaley column and read the sports roundup that he'd have in the Fosters and things like that. And it's just not something that people need currently just because of the nature of social media.
Talk about that magazine. You brought up the magazine that you guys are putting together, and this first issue is focusing on the tournament, correct?
Yes. Yep. So basically, as of right now, it's currently going to be an annual magazine. We're calling it the season with hopes that it can grow. But the thought is right now is it's going to recap the 2021-22 season. Really focusing on the champions. Mike Whaley and myself and perhaps a few other staff are going to be writing articles that will be featured in there, along with lots of photos and graphics. And the thought behind it really is just a way to kind of commemorate the champions that there are, so that we're going to be able to showcase those stories and have a keepsake. You know, we're launching that along with a new web store that's also going to have some championship apparel and things along those lines. And it's just something that's not currently offered in the space. You know, you see it collegiately, you see it, you know, professionally, obviously. And I just feel like that, you know, when the Patriots win the Super Bowl, you see the Sports Illustrated commercial and, hey, it's get your hat and get your magazine, right? You know, it's like, why not do the same thing? You know, I feel that the student athletes really need to be put on a pedestal. And quite frankly, I enjoy high school sports more than professional sports. And I think that communities, you know, really respond well to that type of thing. So I think it's the idea of kind of putting them on a pedestal, and everything that we do is professional. I think that that's a big thing too, is that quality is like a huge thing for us. You know, we have contributors around the state that are sending us some content to put on the site, and you can ask them. I'm pretty picky about it, and I think that that's just basically you know, trying to control what we do as far as putting out a good quality product and not just putting out anything. So along those lines, the magazine's going to be the same. It's going to be a real high quality production and publication, and I think that you know, from the cover that people have seen, the response has been great so far.
And thanks again to KJ Cardinal, the founder of Ball603. And if you'd like to watch the complete program, that was episode 81. Another one of our favorite shows from 2022 featured a guest host that we had previously. That was Steve Burris. Now, Steve and I worked in broadcasting years ago, and he also was the former head coach of the Exeter Bluehawk track team. He had one of his co-coaches and a former classmate of mine, Mike St Laurent, join us, along with our producer, Bob Glowacky, and the topic was running.
I firmly remember the day I was sitting as a freshman in high school at Exeter High, and I was thinking of going off of soccer. I knew it was way too small, too slow to go off of football. And they said, boys cross country. And I said, well, that sounds pretty neat. So I went out that day with my cutoff shorts and my kid shoes and proceeded to run 5 miles with the seniors on the team up and over Kimball Hill. And I couldn't walk the next day, but that was my first introduction to running.
Wow. And Steve, what about you?
Well, I'm a child of the 60s, and I clearly remember when I was a freshman in high school, which at the time was at the junior high in Concord. And I was in the car with my dad in the evening, and he was asking what I was going to do when I got to high school. And I said, I don't know. I wasn't really good in any sports or anything. And I was into flying. My dad was a pilot, but, you know, there was nothing in high school to do with that. And I said, well, you know, I'm not big enough to be a football player. And then my dad was telling me about this runner from Concord High by the name of Roger Maxfield. And this was back in the early 60s. And he was the New England champion 2 years in a row. And my dad happened to be reading the paper, the Concord Monitor at the time. And he showed me some clippings later when we got home of Roger Maxfield. And it was all about cross country. And accolades to his coach, Bill Ludi, who I think anyone who ran back in that area would know is one of the greatest coaches ever, not only in New Hampshire, but New England and probably across the country. So I decided, I walked into the locker room the first day of school in my sophomore year, because freshmen couldn't run at that time. And I met Coach Ludi, and he fixed me up with some running clothes, and I had my old PF Flyers or Converse shoes. I can't remember what they were. They weren't really running shoes. And at that time, we were running at a place called White's Park in Concord, and we would run around the pond. And he said, all I want you to do is jog and walk, jog and walk. And I pretty much walked, but he had upwards of 55 or 60 kids on the team at that time. This is the early 60s. There was no soccer. There was only football as competition. So I was near the back most of the time, and sort of gradually worked my way up, and finally found a sport that I liked and that was exciting and that I could do a little bit. And that, long story short, I ran for 52 years and counting, because I'm sort of back to running after being out of it for a while with a bum leg. So here we are. So it's a great sport. And of course, I got into the coaching end as well. And Mike and I hooked up and perpetrated various deeds along the way and had a lot of fun.
I want to get into that, but before we do, let's get the young whipper in the crowd here. Bob Glowacky, our producer, how did you get into running? What stimulated you to get into track and just
I
run?
think I started running in 8th grade. I think there were 7th grade in middle school right there in Stratham or Exeter, and I think my mom probably put me on the team because I had way too much energy. So it was probably a way for me to kind of get that energy out. And I didn't really like any other sports at the time, and that kind of started it all. And freshman and sophomore years, I tried running with all the older, faster runners, and eventually got to be the captain senior year all season. So it was pretty fun, and got to keep a 4x800 meter record, so that's a plus too. So hopefully it'll come down soon with some better teams, but Exeter's always produced a lot of really good runners, so it's nice to be a part of that tradition.
He'll set out to prove you wrong, even at the expense of running himself into the ground, literally, because Mike became pretty famous for some hot weather races that got to him at the end. And most of them, he managed to bash through that barrier, but a couple of them, so I recall, we had to carry him away, or he was carried away in a stretcher or an ambulance or something. But, Mike would just put his head down and compete not only against himself and the other runners, but whatever the elements were as well. He was a tough guy.
I think that's the thing about running, is that your personal best is what's really in your head. I would think, you want to try to do a little bit better than you did the last time, or if you set a goal for a time, that's what you're aiming for. So when it comes to coaching, both of you, I guess, could throw in on this, and Bob, anything you can think of. What are good coaching techniques to? Obviously, Mike, you said the coach at UNH was like, you can't do it this way or the highway. What are good coaching techniques that you guys come up with or like to see taught?
Well, one of the biggest things to me is, regardless of ability, it's a funny thing, I happen to be back coaching middle school now, which is another story. But one of the most important points I try to impress on kids is that your main competitor is yourself, or that little man, or in the case of a woman, that little woman inside you that's always telling you to slow down, that's telling you can't do it. That's your main competitor. Whether you finish first or last or in the middle, only one person can finish first in the race. So, everybody's important on the team. There's lots of ways of winning and running. If you improve your time, you're a winner. If you run your first race without walking, you're a winner. If you ran a hill that you could never run before, you're a winner. If you improve your spot on the team, you're a winner. So that's a great thing about running. And Exeter was always just a great place for running. The community was supportive. Of course, we had the Nike influence and the Jeff Johnson girls team influence, and just great places to run. Mike mentioned Kimball Hill, great road courses, great forest courses, the Academy Trails, of course, Fort Rock, as we called it at that time. So, I mean, that was the big thing to me. Winning, my coach once said when I was in high school, a winning is not the sole intent of a good program, but it's the result of a good program. So if you concentrate on all those other details and help every kid be as good as he can be or she, then the winning will sort of take care of itself. So I guess that kind of sums up my coaching philosophy. Which
what about you, Mike? What about you?
Yeah, I think the unique thing about running is, and I ended up coaching at Newmarket High, the winter track and spring track program, for a good number of years, because I wanted my kids to have a good coach, to be honest. And one of the things I always had to educate parents about was you go to these track meets and it said, we cheer for everybody. You could be being lapped in the mile run, and it's like, instead of saying, God, that kid stinks, you see him, he's trying as hard as they can. And the feeling of the team, and it's just so rewarding and accommodating to every single level of person, every single type of person. It makes for a completely different team atmosphere. And that carries over to adult running as well. I've been to lots of road races where you get to the end and people are clapping for, like crazy for the last person coming in, because everybody appreciates and understands the diligence and the suffering and how hard it is to get to that point. If you're going to finish a half marathon and you've never done one before and you lost 40 pounds, it's like going, that's significantly harder than some of us that are still fit. They're saying, oh, it's easy for me, I can just go around a half marathon. Or other people say, man, that is so hard to do that. It's one of these sports that has the individual accomplishment, no matter what it is, applauded by everyone. And that's like a lesson in life that you're not going to learn. You rarely learn in other sports.
Bob, now again, you're the younger guy here, but what in coaching, what were you looking for? A coach obviously is supportive, but I mean, what are there techniques that they helped you with?
I definitely think with distance running in particular, at least in my experience, the teams, like they had mentioned, everybody's kind of different levels. So you got some really fast people, some slower people, and everything in between. So it's the coach's ability to kind of come up with workouts that fit to your ability and that will push you. My coach, Scazzatelli, was big on like VO2 max and all these things, which I've completely forgotten about now. But, we did a lot of work in the beginning of the season to, see where you should be working out and coming up with fun workouts that kind of change it up and push you. But I think what worked more for me is less the coaching and more that team environment is really important with running. When I went to Iona, which is one of the best running schools in the college level, we have national champions and from all over Europe and Kenya and stuff like that. And we would all run together for the first 2 miles of that Sunday long run. Then they're going off at their 5-minute pace for 17 miles and I'm chugging along at, 6.5 or 7. But we all work together and, push each other. And like they had mentioned, even people on other teams in high school, I remember, Bluehawk, Winnicott Warrior rivalries, but I would go and run with the best kid on the Winnicott team, and we'd go run at the beach together. I'd park my car at Odiorn, he'd park his car at Hampton Beach, and we'd help each other out and go running together. And because like I said, it's sure in one small race you might win or lose based on those other people around you, but in cross country, it's unless you're at the very top, you're running with everybody and against yourself, not really against other people. So that's kind of what I liked about it.
If you want to catch that whole running show, just go to our YouTube channel, Seacoast Sports Forum YouTube channel, and episode 86. We wrap up our look back at the year 2022 with one of our favorite programs. It was the first championship of the fall season for the Exeter Bluehawks and a repeat championship for the Exeter Bluehawk golf team. And we had the fortunate chance to go up to Exeter Country Club and interview the head coach of the team and a couple of the players. First off, let's start off with head coach Beetle Bailey, and then we'll have Connor Allard and Yasha Johnston. Now, you had a very special season, 27-0 in the regular season, tournament season. Was there a point in the season where you knew it was clicking and potentially you had something special going there?
Well, after we got to about 15-0 and we had a stretch where we were going to have 3-4 matches in 5 days. and we won the whole week. And so after that Friday we played over at Pinkerton, and Hoodcroft has always been just a hard course to play at. It's a great little 9-hole course. And sure enough, the kids come in and they won the match over there against Keene and Pinkerton, and that was two of our biggest, teams that we had to play. And we walked away with a, 7 or 8 stroke win. And I said to Kevin McQueen on Monday when I saw him, I said, I think the kids can do this. And Kevin says, Beetle, there's no reason why you can't run the table. He says, go for it. He said, that's what they want to do. And it was really nice too, because we had alumni who were members here at Exeter Country Club. And they'd come up and they say, undefeated. Geez, Coach, we've never had an undefeated team. And these were kids who played on state championship teams back in the 80s and 90s. And they said, we never had an undefeated team. So they said, keep going, get them all. And I think the kids just wanted to do that. They didn't talk about it. They just wanted to do it, and they did it. So we got by Bedford over there, so that was good. And, so then you kind of knew that something was special.
What point of the season did you guys think, hey, we're going to have a real solid season, but undefeated season? Did you ever think that?
Yeah, I didn't ever cross my mind leading up to the season that we were going to go undefeated. I knew from the very beginning that we had a great chance at winning it. But yeah, I think Coach made a great point. When we played Bedford at Manchester Country Club, and when we won there, we all played really well. I think that was a point in the season that was kind of in the second half where I realized, we haven't lost yet, and we're looking really good. Like this might be able to happen.
What about you?
I was thinking really on our practice. I mean, we had maybe 8 kids shooting in the 30s at practice, and that was a really good sign. And throughout the whole season, we were doing that. And after we won the match at Concord, I'd say, is when I realized, I think we've got a chance at being undefeated this year. Because, Concord's a good team, and they played really well this year.
I want to talk about the individual matchup between you two guys for the state, but I also want to keep on the state tourney. Were there individual holes for each other, or when you were playing that you were saying, hey, this is good, this is a good thing, we're in sync, we're looking at the title here?
Well, I think at Keene, the first 2 holes for both me and Yasha are par 5s to start. And the par 5s are holes that you really have to get, especially they're the first and second holes. So I think getting off to a good start there is something that we did. We were both under par through 2 holes, and I think that really propelled us to just kind of get into a flow for the rest of the round and just keep on going from there.
Yeah, I think I agree with Connor. Like, we had a great start. We were under par through the first few holes, and we had some good momentum off of that. So great start, led a good round.
And you guys went into the individual tournament, going for the title, and dog eat dog. You guys went 1-2, and it was right down to the final day. So walk us through that. Yasha, you go first.
So coming into that day, I had a 5-shot lead, and then I had a tough start, and it was kind of hard to rebound after that, like mentally. But throughout the whole day, we were battling pretty hard. It was a good day for golf. And
now you missed the tournament action last year because of illness, and so was there in the back of your mind, hey, I want to make this happen because I lost a year basically, or lost the chance? Was that part of the in your gut to win the thing?
Yeah, for sure. I absolutely wanted to win after what happened last year, and Yasha's a great competitor, and it was really awesome to play against him. And it was very natural out there for both of us. We played a bunch together, so it was a pretty easy flow, I felt like. And we both played really well. We were battling the whole day. It was neck and neck for a lot of it, and I thought in the back of my mind though that whole time it was like, I really would love to cap off the season with a win.
Is it harder though, knowing that the guy you're going to beat is your teammate?
Yeah, it is. It's a little strange. Like I said, Yasha is a great competitor, and he's really great golfer, and he'll be around for the next couple of years. He's only a sophomore, so the next 2 years are definitely his to take in the state title. So I got one from him, but he's got some more coming.
Head coach Beetle Bailey and also Connor Allard and Yasha Johnston, 2 members of the champion Exeter Bluehawk golf team. Congratulations, gentlemen. And if you'd like to watch the complete episode, matter of fact, it was the most watched episode of the Seacoast Sports Forum, go to our YouTube channel, Seacoast Sports Forum, episode 95. And there you have a look back at some of the fun programs we did in 2022, and we're looking forward to some great programs ahead in 2023. Thank you to all of our special guests and guest hosts over 2022. And again, we're looking ahead to a busy year in 2023, including our 100th program. And a special guest that will join us for that one. You can listen to the Seacoast Sports Forum on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to watch the episodes of the Seacoast Sports Forum on our Seacoast Sports Forum YouTube page. And when you're there, hit the bell to subscribe and like us. And if you have any sports photos or game videos you'd like to send us or comments, seacoastsportsforum@yahoo.com. This is Sherm Chester inviting you to join us for the next edition of the Seacoast Sports Forum.